So I want to bring this guy in. I don't want to. I have a million things to talk with him about, and of course, the first being to congratulate Sal Paolantonio, who was awarded last night the Dick Vermeil Achievement Award from the Otho Davis Foundation. Sal, how you doing?
Pat, thank you very much. Doing great. It was a great night last night. Thank you for coming. I really appreciated your support.
It was a great night and a great showing for Sal Pao. Paul Tagliabue there, the ex-commissioner. And I thought his a nice speech by the commissioner. Nice job by him. I'd love to. He's a guy I'd love to have on the show and just sit down and then the stories he could probably talk about from his tenure as the successor to Pete Rozelle. Huh?
Pat, we are going to get Paul Tagliabue on this week in pro football. And Pat, that's the first time in a generation an NFL commissioner has addressed a Philadelphia audience.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And he came out because of you and the great work. And I tell you, it's impressive for anybody who wasn't there, the regard that people have in the football community for Sal Paolantonio. As they should. Long time guy. And it was a funny, self-deprecating story you told about your boss there at ESPN, the way he said, Sal can be in pain, but he gets the job done. Leave him alone. Well, there you go. That's about as good as it gets, right?
Right. Don't talk to me about Sal. He can be a pain, but You know what? He gets stuff done. So leave him alone.
I want to tell you one other anecdote for everybody listening. Ray Didinger was there. Ray and Sal have known each other forever. I guess it's the 70s, right? I mean, you guys have probably known each other for 50 years, right?
No, I didn't come here until 1985, which is when and at that point I was covering Philadelphia politics, so I really didn't get to really know Ray in depth until about 1990. Okay. Actually, 1988 we met during the snowball game, the Fog Bowl game in Chicago. So,
all right. Well, that's 35 years. So
35 years of and I regard Ray as the absolute gold standard.
Ray is terrific and a terrific guy too. But I just wanted to tell you this quick story. Sal knows me well enough that I'm so old school. I'm like log cabin. I'm not old school. I go right to log cabin. So I'm talking with Ray because we're two old radio guys, and Ray was lamenting how he had a Saturday radio show that his partner on the show would often dismiss phone calls from people who wanted to talk about teams other than the Eagles. And Ray would always say, you shouldn't do that. I'll talk to anybody about any team. So I, of course, jump in. I say to Ray, well, here's how I became a Rams fan. And here's how I said, December 9th, 1967, Rams hosting the Packers. Late in the game, Rams are losing. Only a couple minutes to go. And Ray interrupts me and he says, and Tony Guillory blocks the punt.
Oh, my God.
So that is the
there's no way that happened. You have to be making that up.
Football oracle Ray Didinger is. He actually filled in that last sentence. Tony Guillory blocks the punt. And I imagine we're the only two guys on the planet Earth who remember that it was Tony Guillory that blocked that punt. But that's an amazing indication of the way of how Ray Didinger is. But it was a great night. Everybody had a great time, and it was a
football night in Philly, the Otho Davis Scholarship Foundation banquet. And next year, you got to get your tickets early because as you saw, it's sold out. They had over 450 people there, and it was really spectacular night. And they raised a lot of money last night, Pat. Teddy Atlas drove down from Staten Island to be with me. And he was stuck in traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike. He showed up a little late. He handed me a check for $5,000 for the foundation. It blew everybody away. And that really, when that was announced, people started to pony up big time.
Good. Well, good for you. Well done. Well deserved. All right, Sal, listen, we only have a couple minutes before the first break, but I thought we'd start with this. And because it came up last night. Dan Baker was one of the featured speakers, a long-time veteran stadium announcer and Eagles announcer. I remember from Temple, too. And he was introducing many of the luminaries that were there. And one of the items that came up, of course, was he mentioned a couple times the 1980 NFC title game between the Eagles and the Cowboys. And I just wanted you to talk about this for a minute, how I think Dallas is now the Eagles' lone rival in the NFC East. I think the average Philadelphia fan, they're still aware of Washington, the Commanders, whatever the hell that means. And the Giants are just so banal and terrible that I think the Eagle fan, and it goes back, Sal, as far as 1980, 43 years ago, almost everybody can remember where they were when Wilbert Montgomery ran that 45-yard touchdown run.
Well, I think you're right. I think the memory of that game is much bigger than really Super Bowl 52 for a large generation of Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the flame has been kept alive by people who were in that game and tell the story of that game all the time. Dick Vermeil, Ron Jaworski, Spagnuolo, Berge, all those guys are still, Ray Didinger, still talking about it. When you sent me the outline for the show, I went back and I read Ray Didinger's piece. And you've got to remember that the Cowboys had won 23 out of 25 previous meetings between the Eagles and the Cowboys leading up to that game. The Cowboys were favored. They had identical records, but the game was played because of a tiebreaker situation in Philadelphia. Yeah. And the fans had such a great part in juicing up the team. Yeah. And the score really doesn't reflect how physical the Eagles were with that Cowboys team on that day. And, of course, nobody could run on the Cowboys that year. And then the Eagles just racked up, big rushing yards. And, of course, the prime example was Wilbert Montgomery. And Dick Vermeil explained to Ray Didinger only, because I didn't find it anywhere else, how they used an I formation with 3 wide receivers set. The Cowboys were in their nickel coverage, man-to-man. Cowboys played man for their entire history.
Right.
So the D-backs had their backs turned to the line of scrimmage. Yeah. And bang, Wilbert Montgomery hit the hole like he was shot out of a cannon. And remember this. Yeah. He had a knee injury that kept him out of practice for most of the week before that game.
Right.
So, it was like almost divine intervention.
Yeah.
And that's why people remember it. That's why they do. But, to me, Philly Special and Super Bowl 52 will go down, to me, as the greatest Eagles because they beat Tom Brady, who had an historic game on that day.
Right. And the fact is, they won the NFL championship that day. I mean, you always think.
First and only Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's the one that matters, is the NFL championship, not the NFC championship.
And here's the book to tell you the story.
That's right. Good
I got it handy, Pat. So last night, I only raffled off one, and we had an auction. I bought some of my books. I only had one of Philly Special. Like 15 people came up to me and said, "Do you have any more of these books?"
Yeah.
Because I said, "Well, you can go on Amazon. You can still find it." But they said, "No, we want you to sign it."
They want the signed copy. Yes, that's right, which I'm privileged to have.
So I will bring a whole bunch next year for people who want it.
All right, listen, Sal, when we get back, I want to expand further on the Eagles-Dallas rivalry. I want to talk about that Eagles pass D. Slinging Sammy Howell does it again. Get your opinions on that. And we'll look around the league, too, with Sal Paolantonio. We're going to talk to Sal about his 49ers and Miami, Kansas City, and Germany, and much more. We'll do that in just a minute on This Week in Pro Football. And welcome back to This Week in Pro Football. I'm joining you on JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. And the great Sal Paolantonio joining me as we get ready for Philadelphia and Dallas and the usual histrionics that accompany the Dallas Cowboys coming to town. All right, Sal, a little trivia for you. What do these guys have in common? Terrell Owens, Mike Ditka, Tommy McDonald, Harold Carmichael, and Herschel Walker. Can you tell me what they have in common?
Well, they're all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
And they all also played for both Philadelphia and Dallas. And it's odd. You never would know or think that Harold Carmichael actually played a year as a Dallas Cowboy. And I remember Tommy McDonald went there too with Dallas, but very rare.
That I did not know. That's why I didn't. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
But I did not know that Tommy McDonald played for the Cowboys. Anyway, this rivalry has become pretty intense. And, these teams are going to play 3 times this year. They're going to play here.
Yeah.
They're going to play in Dallas, and then they're going to play in the playoffs.
All right.
And one of these two teams will be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, all right, Sal. All right. I appreciate that. And but I think I still give Philly a decided edge here. And here's one reason why. The Cowboys, to me, Sal, are a very schizophrenic team. And yes, they can look impressive. They looked impressive last week, beating what is now a 3-5 Ram team. I knew they were going to win that game big. But Dallas seems to me, Sal, once a month, they play a great game against a sub-500 team, and Dak Prescott looks really good. But I don't think they do it consistently. Give me your thoughts. Where you see Prescott as in the overall ranks of NFL quarterbacks right now this season?
Well, he's had a good year against bad teams.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Right.
He's had a good year against bad teams.
Right.
The Jets, the Giants, the Rams,
Right.
That's pretty much it. So they went up to San Francisco and they got boat raced.
Right.
And
Right.
The key was, on both sides of the ball, they didn't have an answer on third down. They didn't have an answer on pressure on the quarterback.
Right.
But San Francisco has changed quite a bit. Deebo Samuel is hurt. Brock Purdy is not playing as well as he has. Now, San Francisco has bolstered their defense quite a bit since that game. So they understand Javon Hargrave has not really lived up to his billing since they brought him in, and they need to get pressure on the quarterback. The whole league is about one thing and one thing only. Are you getting pressure on the quarterback?
Right.
I'm going to give you these numbers, Pat. Scoring is down, way down in the National Football League. The under is king right now in the NFL. Las Vegas knows it. The guys know it.
Right.
Points scored per game is at a 13-year low. Why? Because pass block win rate is the lowest it's been in 6 years. And quarterback rating league-wide is at an all-time low. League-wide, quarterbacks are averaging just 6.1 yards per attempt, lowest in 17 years.
How about that one?
Why do I mention that? Because the Cowboys sort of fit into that, and the Eagles do not. The Eagles are bucking the trend. Their scoring is up. They are top in the league in pass block win rate. Last week, they surpassed Kansas City in that number. And Hurst's passer rating last week was 135.7. That's 35 points higher than his average for last season.
Yeah.
So the Eagles are, without a doubt, bucking the trend, and the Cowboys are not.
Yeah.
That to me is the key.
All right. But just to buttress what you said, 5 to 12 games this week, the over-under is under 40 points, actually under 38 points. So it goes to show you're right. And it's all at the quarterback position. We'll have to talk about that. You and I have talked about quarterbacks forever. We'll talk about that in a future show. But the corollary, the flip side of this is the Eagles' pass defense. Now, you and I have laughed about slinging Sammy Howe, but Sal, 39 of 52, 397 and 4 touchdowns last week. I don't know what the 114 passer rating. The Eagles are 26th in the league in passing yard defense per game. How concerned are you about this? But I don't know if Prescott can really take advantage of it. But how major a concern is it going into Sunday?
Oh, it's a major concern. Prescott's coming off a good game. So is CeeDee Lamb, and the Eagles gave up a lot of yardage to the Washington Commanders. They've been starting 5 on their defense, 5 DBs. Bradbury, Slay, Roby's hurt, Kevin Byard, Reed Blankenship. So last week they didn't have Roby, and they're not going to probably have him this week. He's not practicing. He's only played 55 snaps since they traded for him. That's only 10. So they're going to probably try to get Sidney Brown, the rookie, to play in the slot. Now, I liked what Sidney Brown did, Sean Desai using him on corner and safety blitzes. I thought it was smart. He's fast. He's tough. He hits hard. And that's a really nice aspect of what they do. But here's the big but. In coverage, he's learning, because that's what you do, unless, of course, you're Deion Sanders coming out of college. So, it's a tough position to play. especially the way they play it.
Right.
So what I think they're going to have to do in this game specifically is they're going to have to do a lot of doubling of CeeDee Lamb. They just will.
All right.
Because the Cowboys are going to double A.J. Brown.
Right.
A.J. Brown has more yards against man-to-man coverage than any wide receiver in the league.
Really?
And if the Cowboys think they are going to play man-to-man against A.J. Brown, they're going to lose the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, the way Mike McCarthy, and I'm going to talk to him tomorrow for my shows this weekend, one-on-one. To me, Mike McCarthy's got to take the air out of the ball. He cannot get, in my view, into an air show with Jalen Hurts. That can't happen. They got to take the air out of the ball, and they got to run the ball more than they have.
No, Sal, I think two things are going to get in the way of that. One is that Dallas is not committed to the run all season long. Tony Pollard's been a huge disappointment. And
he's coming off a major injury. I don't understand why they thought all of a sudden a running back in his first year from a major injury was going to have he's not Breece Hall.
No.
Who's a young man. Yeah. So they're going to have to commit to the run, because if they think they're going to get into a shootout, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown in the jungle of South Philly,
right?
I mean, they're out of their minds.
And also the fact that, as you mentioned 5 minutes ago, the Eagle pass rush will be a key to the game. If the Eagles tee off and they can get after Dak Prescott, he becomes a totally different quarterback.
Well, here's the thing. The Eagles pass rush has been good in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And especially Hassan Reddick. So get an early lead, then get after Dak Prescott. That's the way you got to go.
All right. One other thing about –
I believe the Eagles can do that, and I think they will win this game that way.
All right. Sal Pao, presented by the great folks at Prime Bank in New Jersey. Sal, one quick word about Jalen Hurts. You and I have been talking about him, obviously, a great deal this season, and you're very much aware of this. I won't call it a controversy. This issue regarding the Eagles' seemingly, almost manic need to dismiss the fact that he might have a knee injury. How prevalent do you see this? Is it affecting his role in the run game of the Eagles?
Well, he only had 6 rushing yards last week against Washington. That was his lowest rushing output since he's become the full-time starter. So there's proof.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
That's proof right there. Right. He was wincing at times, a slight limp. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have the great Tim McManus on very shortly. He's around the team all the time. He did live shots yesterday while you and I were hanging around Otho Davis banquet. Timmy Mack was working yesterday. So you're going to have him on the air. Get the great Timmy Mack to tell you what's going on. I mean,
Tim's going to do that. We're going to have him on later. All right, listen, Sal Pao, let me get around the league with you. I got a couple minutes left with you. Some quick hits. I mentioned Brock Purdy as Dorian Gray. Now, you'll remember that literate guy, St. Joe professor that you once were. Is the bloom off the rose with him now? Is he playing like the last man picked in the draft, or will he rebound with a very talented 49er offense?
Well, listen, come on. Deebo Samuel was such an important part of what they do, because Deebo Samuel would run those wide receiver screens, the wide receiver jet sweeps. Right. He was always open. I mean, Deebo Samuel proves to be as important to that offense as Christian McCaffrey. Right. So that definitely changed the configuration for Brock Purdy midstream. And then he's coming off a concussion.
Right.
And then he got his head hit last week, too. He fell on the back of his head last week. That's exactly what happened to Tua.
I know.
So, I don't know. I'm not close to the situation, obviously. I am going to do what we call informed speculation. Maybe they shouldn't have played him last week.
All right. Or they certainly should have taken a hard look when he fell in the back of his head. Somebody should have taken a hard look, because his play dropped markedly after that.
So the answer to your question, he's coming off a concussion. He's missing Deebo Samuel. I'm not ready to make any big judgments. I'll make an evaluation of how he did last week, just like I'll make an evaluation of how Jalen Hurts did last week as a runner. He is a dual threat quarterback who is now really winning from the pocket, but at some point The Eagles will have to run the football more effectively. And the reason why they were an effective running team is because you had to dedicate a hat in run defense to Jalen Hurts. If you don't have to do that, and you really want to rely, okay, now that's a different configuration. Let's see how smart Dan Quinn is as a defensive coordinator in this football game.
There you go. And one other thing, Sal, I want to hit you with. That's kind of a two-pronger, if you'll allow me. Miami, Kansas City, let's face it, it's a marquee game, so let's put that on at 9 o'clock in the morning. But okay, it just worked out that way. But to the Chiefs, you probably noted last week, they lost to Denver, and a critical play in the fourth quarter, Sky Moore drops a beautiful touchdown throw from Patrick Mahomes. How do you see this game, 6-2 Miami and Kansas City? And also, why didn't the Chiefs go get a receiver at the trading deadline? And will it come back to haunt them?
I think they should have tried to pry Devontae Adams away from Las Vegas, but I don't think that would have ever happened within the division. I guess maybe that's a bit of a pipe dream. But, those guys are not walking around on the street. Sky Moore is a young receiver who dropped the pass, and he's got to bounce back from that, or else Kansas City is going to have a problem. See, the Kansas City is favored in the game by 2.5 points.
2.5, yeah.
Yep. They're still so good in the fourth quarter, but they got to get to the fourth quarter.
All right.
They got to get to the fourth quarter. That's the key in this game.
Yeah.
And we saw Miami when they came in here.
Yeah.
Steve Spagnuolo is from South Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I think he'll have an answer for Miami. I like Kansas City in that game a little bit. By the way, talk about 9:30 in the morning. That stadium in Frankfurt, I think, only holds 40-something thousand people. It's a soccer stadium, right? You could have probably sold triple that number of tickets.
And they just swapped out the turf too. I hope nothing happens at that game. They just swapped the turf out. I don't know, but then we'll see how that goes. But the matchup show this weekend, you already mentioned you have Cowboys coach coming on. Anything else of interest? And how does everybody feel?
We'll be all over this weekend for sure, and we'll be all over Cowboys Eagles for sure. We have a whole segment with Darius Butler and Greg Cosell. I'm right at NFL Films right now. The happy time of last night is over. Time to get into the film study.
Back into it.
You got to get back into it. It's Cowboys week, baby. And, the key to this game to me is the two number 11s. A.J. Brown and Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
So you got to block Micah Parsons and run at him. They've had success doing that.
Right.
Run right at him. Make sure he has a fat mouthful of 2 or 3 face masks on every rundown. And the other thing is, if you cover A.J. Brown one-on-one, you're dead.
Right.
Even with 2 guys on him, we saw him beat them.
Yep.
AJ, don't let A.J. Brown destroy your night.
All right. Well, we'll see how the Battle of the 11s go. I believe it's going to go for the home team, but we'll see how it goes. But I appreciate all this time, Sal. It was a great segment as always. Congratulations again to you. And we look forward to the matchup show. We look forward to talking to you again next week. All right, pal?
All right, man.
All right. The great Sal Paolantonio joining me for an extended segment there. Thanks very much to him. Thanks very much to this guy for hanging on. That will be Sean Green, known as Mo Green now in Vegas, certain parts of Vegas anyway. And we're going to talk about some midseason trends with Sean, midseason betting trends. And, of course, we'll hit the 3 marquee games with him this weekend and see what he thinks about them. So please stay with us here on This Week in Pro Football presented by Kennedy Ford.